Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack, and I'm the moderator today. I work for Jade Capital. I'm a partner. We do healthcare, biotech, life science related investments, especially with a focus in GBA. And today I'm interviewing my best friend for you because I know him so well. But every time I talk to him, there's new idea. There are new ideas. There's new inspiration. Without any delay, ladies and gentlemen, Danny Yeung.
Jack.
Danny, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. So Jack, nice to meet everyone here in Macau-wise. Danny Yeung, pretty much been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. My first business started at the age of 25 with Hui Lao San. 3-4 years later, did a hotel furniture business, import-export from China into the US. Later, then I moved from US into Hong Kong 2010. Started an e-commerce company, then that was subsequently acquired by Groupon. And in 2014, I started Prenetics, which is a DNA testing company.
Sure. Danny, I personally got tested around 16 times.
16 times?
Last year by Prenetics, because every time I travel out and travel in Hong Kong, I got tested by Prenetics. And obviously, you tested the entire crowd of Standard Chartered Marathon as well during COVID, right? So from your past experience of mango-related dessert and furniture, how did you start Prenetics? What's the inspiration behind it?
I mean, actually, the inspiration of Prenetics came quite naturally. Yeah? Because I think if you look at my past entrepreneur experience, it was actually very different industries. And when I exited Groupon-wise, I really wanted to do something impactful. And then so I chose healthcare. Even though I didn't have a background in healthcare, but I started talking to geneticists, professors, scientists. And I was like, wow, hey, there's so much that you can do with just a simple saliva sample. And I was thinking, hey, there's a lot of actual ways to make money, but there's very few ways to make money impacting people's health and creating a large business at the same time, right? So I really wanted to just create Prenetics based on impact.
Sure. And I know that you actually prepared the technology before COVID hit, right? So do you think it's luck? Do you have any intel that there's going to be a pandemic? How come you prepared the technology before everything actually really happened?
Of course, right? I mean, I think in any business, you need a little bit of luck. I mean, never hurts, right? Correct? So, but I think ultimately we were prepared for the pandemic. No one was actually prepared for the pandemic because no one could have predicted it, maybe except Bill Gates, right? But then I think the key thing that we had going into the pandemic was that we had a strong team. We had the laboratory, we had a strong team, we had the leadership alignment at the top, where when the pandemic hit in March 2020, we're just trying to do something for the community because at the time in Hong Kong, it was very difficult to do a COVID test. It was like 3,000 to 4,000 HKD, and you need to go hospital. No one wanted to go hospital at the time.
Yep.
Right? And then we launched our first PCR at home test for 785 HKD when hospitals were selling for 3,000 to 4,000 HKD.
Yep.
Yeah, and then so that was us trying to help the community. And in July of 2020, the Hong Kong government enlisted us as the first private laboratory to do mass community testing. In that project, we did 300,000 restaurant workers across 16,000 restaurants. And now looking back in the last 3 years, we've now processed more than 28 million PCR tests and at-home testing on a global basis.
Yeah, I think before COVID, you did a lot of DNA testing, right? Like a DNA sequencing, and then how does that mapping for individuals? Tell us more about are you using the same lab when you are, do the sequencing, see the result of DNA testing versus the COVID testing? Is that the same facility?
Yeah, it's the same laboratory, same group of people, same scientists, et cetera, wise, right? Because the reality is actually COVID-19 PCR technology is very, very well established. There's nothing new, right? So I actually think COVID-19, I think what we did very well was actually on the infrastructure, the logistics, the data, how do you get the results out, the at-home experience. So these things are, I would say, the typical laboratories we're not so prepared for. Right? And then so this is where my e-commerce background, I think, really helped in this type of area, being able to scale. Because at our height, we went from doing 200 tests on a daily basis in March of 2020. At the height of the fourth wave in Hong Kong in 2021, we're doing 40,000 tests daily. So quite crazy, right? Literally, our whole office was really just packed with people. Everything was a big mess in a way, but the laboratory, we had to make sure everything was very accurate and done very precisely.
Fantastic. So that question is very relevant to my next question because a lot of people will be curious, right? So there are some companies made a very good amount of money during COVID because of this is a pandemic and there's a need for testing, need for public health management. And obviously that success also made you the first unicorn to be listed in Nasdaq for Hong Kong, right? But going forward, how do you transfer the brand, the facility, and everything, your team, to the next phases of Prenetics? So what's your plan? What do you see next?
No, great question, because I think what COVID actually, the pandemic actually, of course, it accelerated, created a lot of credibility for Prenetics, not just in Hong Kong, but on a global basis, right? And then we've made money with that. We were able to list on the Nasdaq last year. Now our company position-wise, we have a very strong cash balance. We're very fortunate for that. Right now, we have more than 200 mil US in cash. And then so where do we want to deploy that, right? So we want to reinvest all of that into oncology. Yeah, so when I talk about oncology, this is really about precision oncology. So for example, 4 months ago, we acquired our first company called ACT Genomics. This is in the area of targeted therapy. So when someone is diagnosed with cancer, you're able to understand what drug works best for your specific mutation. Yeah, and then so I think that's a really important area because once you have cancer, you have very limited options. You don't know what drug works best or what drug doesn't, or chemo is going to work. So having personalized medicine is really important for road to recovery. The other aspect in the future is going to be about early detection. Early detection, imagine you can do a simple blood test and being able to identify early detection of liver cancer, lung cancer, or even multi-cancer early detection tests in the next 3 to 5 years. So we're going to be spending lots of capital in terms of clinical trials and focusing on this area. And also lastly, our core business before the pandemic was a product called Circle DNA. And then so this is really about prevention. Doing a simple saliva test to help you identify more than 500 different reports about your diet, nutrition, disease risks, cancer risks. And then so so I think we're very excited about the future potential of Prenetics.
Sure. Recently I noticed a lot of people, after the border is open, everybody said Hong Kong is back, COVID is over. A lot of people actually travel from China to Hong Kong. And a lot of people notice actually, the needs of this population actually not only on wealth products, but also on health products, right? So now we also have Hong Kong government always saying, trying to do more on the biotech sector, for more entrepreneurs to do more in this area. So how do you see Hong Kong positioning itself in the whole value chain and the whole ecosystem with mainland on the biotech industry?
I think there's a very exciting opportunity, right? Especially you have GBA, you have over 80 million people pretty much within an hour, 2 hours from Hong Kong, right? And Hong Kong has been always known to be a great place for healthcare, medical tourism. So we feel that's very, very important in terms of testing, services, prescription drugs, fertility. So there's a wealth of healthcare services that basically Hong Kong can benefit the GBA audience from.
Yeah. And then obviously, if you have customers from mainland China, you are competing with the mainland companies, right? So what do you see as the advantage of Hong Kong startup and Macau startup even compared with mainland Chinese startups?
Yeah, so I think we're able to get the best of both worlds, right? So we have like understanding the Asian culture, and we're also looking at very international scientific discoveries, right? So being able to merge the two is really important. And again, when they come to Hong Kong, they'll always know they'll get great service. Right? So I think that's very, very important as well. So I do believe Hong Kong is very, very well positioned because again, you're not just close to mainland China, it's also within 4 hours from Southeast Asia. Right? So being able to tackle that, for example, Circle DNA, our biggest market is Hong Kong, but Singapore, Malaysia, these are all equally important markets for us. And then by having a presence here in Hong Kong, we're able to reach this whole Asia population.
Great. Danny, and I have the last question for me, right? I mean, you are a serious entrepreneur. You create so many companies. Do you think Prenetics is your last stop?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, because I think the reality is starting any company is very, very difficult, right? I think I paid my dues, but Prenetics also, to be fair, we're thinking about healthcare. We're thinking about 5 to 10 years down the road, right? So there's so much innovation. There's so much for us to do. And again, when we think about the impact, imagine again, in the future-wise, for example, talking about cancer, I think cancer is a big problem because once you're diagnosed with cancer-wise, if you're diagnosed at late stages, let's say stage 3 or 4, you have an 11% survival rate of 5 years. But imagine if we're able to detect it early at stage 1 or stage 2, your survival rate goes up to 87%. So if we're looking at one problem, because healthcare is very wide, but if we're looking at one problem, that's one key area we're going to focus on. And again, with preventive, there's so much things to do. So I think just even though Prenetics is going to be the last company, there's a wealth of area that we can focus on.
Sure. Sorry, it's not my last question because we still have some time, right?
Should I ask you a question, Jack?
This is about me asking your question. Just a reminder. My last question, right? Because you are the first unicorn listed in Nasdaq, right? And obviously, I think there's a lot of political tension between the two countries, right? And then we see less and less tech companies to be listed in Nasdaq going forward. So do you have a plan of coming back to Hong Kong to be listed, right? And to your home country? And then obviously, what do you think about the capital market environment so far for startups?
No, very good question, Jack. I mean, just take everyone through the process, right? And when we decided to list was actually in 2021. Of course, the market at that time was still very good, right? And then started in 2022, it started to deteriorate, and now, I mean, basically the IPO market is pretty much dead. And even when we listed, there was a long process within SEC. There was a lot of uncertainty. There were a lot of questions in terms of asking us all of our WOFE structure, VIE structure, our operational plans in mainland China. So I think we went through it was a quite grueling process to actually get listed in the US, but certainly we believe in the future-wise, our growth is going to come from Asia. And we definitely do want to list back in Hong Kong where we feel that we're going to get the brand recognition. We're going to get investors that also understand the landscape. Because I think one challenge we have now being listed in the US is that a lot of investors, they've actually never sat foot in Asia, which is actually very surprising, right? But that's the reality of the situation. So they're unable to understand the landscape, unable to understand the competitiveness, they're unable to understand the upside potential, which we see already with just GBA, right? So definitely, I think Hong Kong's definitely in the horizon, right?
It seems there's a lot of fantastic things to look forward to, and we wish you and Prenetics every success in the future. Yeah?
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Maybe Jack, tell us about Tiger Jade.
Tiger Jade?
Yeah, Tiger Jade.
We are a VC based in Hong Kong, and then we are very dedicated our effort into investing into the region because we see, for many reasons, that Hong Kong has fantastic research, has really good professors. I know some of the professors are working with you very closely, right? So we see a lot of tech transfer opportunities. But what Hong Kong lacks of is somebody who actually can help these professors to use their technology to create successful business. So Danny, what you have done, you transfer technology from Oxford, from UK, from Hong Kong to some consumer-related products to healthcare-related products is the ability we're looking for. So we will seek a lot of advices from you. Yeah.
Thank you. Is it related to Tiger Med?
Yeah, Tiger Med is one of our biggest LPs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Danny.